family to come this way, please, and be seated. We'll ask everyone else to gather behind the family, please.
Здравствуйте, я Михаил, мы с вами по телефону беседовали. Примите мои глубочайшие соболезнования. Душевный помощь. Вы присаживайтесь, тут есть одеяло, как вы... Вы кушайте домой по-английски.
Please join the family. We're going to ask everyone to stand behind the chairs, please.
Does everyone have a program?
If I may have your attention, please, we're about to begin our service. We'll ask that everyone please take a moment to turn your cell phones to their silent mode before we begin. We'll also ask that if you're behind the family, please be seated on the chairs. We are filming the service, so we need to make sure that no one is standing in front of the camera. Conducting our service today is Rabbi Michael Tillman.
A long time ago, when I was a young man studying at the Rabbinical Academy, I had a teacher who was the only teacher in my academy who was born in Alterheim, in the old country, as we call it. And he was born in Poland. And I was the only student in the class who was also born in the old country. Everybody else was American born among the professors and the students, so we had a very special relationship. This man was a true genius. He knew the Talmud by heart. He could recite any page from the Talmud from his memory, which is truly astounding and unique. He was much older. He survived the Holocaust. He fought the Germans in the guerrilla unit. So he's been through it all. And eventually, since he was an older man, his health began to decline. And the physicians told him that his days are numbered. And that is when I had this conversation with my teacher that I will never forget. Like many young people, I perceived death rather dramatically. So I said to him, Dr. Wacholder, his name was Ben-Zion Wacholder, that was his name. I said, Dr. Wacholder, are you afraid of death? And his answer truly astonished me. Like many young people, I perceived death dramatically. I already said that, and Dr. Wacholder told me, he said, Mikhail, that's what I called him, Mikhail, I'm not afraid to die. I died many times. I died in the concentration camp. I died fighting the Germans. To die one more time is no big deal. But he said, think about this. What is death? Death is nothing. How can you be afraid of nothing? In that statement, he truly expressed the essence of our spirituality. He's absolutely right. Death is nothing because life is everything. That clarifies the spiritual significance of the ritual of saying farewell to people whom we love and respect. Today is a painful day. We're here to support one another. We're here to support Garik's family, Gary's family, to support Lida, Sasha, the entire family, support each other. We're here to mourn, to express the pain of loss. But more importantly, what gathered us here today is Garik's life. That's why we're here today. With the passage of time, this sadness, it will subside. The tears of sorrow will dry out, but what will remain is beauty of remembrance, the joy of remembrance. The good deeds that he performed in this world, though he changed the world for the better, they cannot be undone. And most importantly, you all know who Gary was. You all know who Garik was. He loved life. When we talked the other day, the first thing that Sasha and Lida told me, he loved life. It was all about life. And today is also all about life, Garik's life. And that is not the reason for sadness. That's the reason to be proud and to celebrate. So let us reflect on the life of a good man, the life that was lived so well. And I'm far from suggesting that Garik's life was an easy life. There's no such thing as an easy life. But we don't choose when and where we're born. And by virtue of circumstances, historical circumstances, he belongs to that generation of our people that we called in the Soviet Union, in our old country, we called them Deti Vayny, the children of war. But not only does he belong to that generation, Deti Vayny, these are people that had to live through horrors, without any exaggeration, true horrors. But he had it tougher than most, and I'll tell you why. I think many of you know why, but I want to highlight that particular fact. Garik is Leningradец. He was born in Leningrad in 1935. So he was 6 years of age when the Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union, and the German armies rapidly advanced towards Leningrad, as well as the Finnish army came from the northwest. I'm not going to get into the military and political history of it, but the fact is, what ended up being the case was a horrible experience called blockada for everyone who lived in the city. That was the pain of the entire country, but of course, first and foremost, that was a terrible human tragedy for Leningrad, for people who lived in that great city. I'm not going to get into these historical details. You can watch it on the history channels and whatever, but literally people were dying on the streets. They couldn't pick up the bodies. People starved. And he was a kid and he lived through all that hell. He lived through all that hell throughout the entire blockade as the city was besieged. Now, I'm saying all that not for us to start feel sorry, oh my goodness, what a terrible childhood Garik had. Well, no, that's not about that. The reason why I'm saying this is because we need to understand and appreciate where that he started. The point of departure of his life and how his system of values was formed and shaped by those experiences, because it only strengthened in him exactly what I said, love for life. When you stare death in the face as a child every day for 3+ years, you learn to value life every day that you are lucky enough to have in this world. The second thing that he learned is, well, live well. Not just love life, live well. Be a good man. Love people. Cherish people. Because again, too many people were lost. Tragically lost. So cherish friendships. Cherish family first and foremost. Another thing that he learned, I told you people starved. Another thing that he learned is eat well too. Well, no, seriously, that generation that had so little to eat when they were kids, they really loved their food when it became available. They valued it, they cherished it. And another important lesson that, again, Garik learned in terms of the shaping up of his value system, was that it is his mission to make sure that next generations of his family don't have to go through what he had to go through. That they have better chance, better opportunities. That was his and Lida's mission. And he dedicated his life to accomplishing that mission. But back to Garik's life. So he survived, stayed in his hometown, home city, Leningrad, a beautiful city, by the way. he was a very gifted man, very talented man. And he went to Leningradsky Polytechnic Institute, which I guess in English would be rendered as the Leningrad Institute of Technology, right? ITT, that's pretty much the equivalent of what is it, became an engineer specializing in electronics. But again, this is kind of, we're talking about old days when they had these punch cards of this old languages. I think Fortran 4 was one of the, so early stages of that big electronics computer revolution. So he was really kind of at the front line of that of those events in the Soviet Union. And he was a brilliant engineer who was highly valued and respected by his colleagues. And again, not only because of his knowledge and professional qualities, but really because of the wonderful human being that he was. A good friend, a good colleague, and also a man of a very broad encyclopedic knowledge. I will talk about that a little bit later. So here comes the next important part. Remember, I said, making sure that your family, next generation of your family, have better shot than you did. And it was not an easy decision, but it was a pivotal decision that Garik and Lida made to leave the USSR and move to the United States. They did it for Sasha, for his future. 1981, the family arrived in America. And well, immigration, and many of you who are of my age or older have gone through that not as children, but as adults. And that is not just moving. Immigration and moving are totally different experiences. It's not like you moved from Chicago to Texas, even though it also could be like, feel like an immigration at times. But seriously, it's not just bringing your stuff here, moving across half the world. It's about new culture, new language that you have to learn, new skills you have to acquire. People think differently, people act differently, people perceive things differently. It's all different. Not criticizing, it's just different. And you have to somehow sink your roots in that society. And in the meantime, you got to feed your kid. You got to make sure that ends are met. You have to meet ends. So this was the experience that Garik and Lida were facing. And they stood up to that challenge. And they have succeeded in that mission. And they made sure that Sasha has a good and bright future in America and becomes an American, and then the next generations of his family arrive. They have fulfilled that mission together. Now, Garik worked at University of Illinois Circle as a biomedical engineer for many years. And then he, of course, eventually he retired from that position, but he did have a good and productive and successful career stateside as well. And again, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It took tremendous amount of effort, took a great deal of stress, but he made it happen. It all happened. Now, besides being an engineer, I mean, brilliant mind, he also had what we call in the Russian language "zолотые руки." So he really was a good handyman. And that is, first of all, it's helpful for any engineer when you have an idea, you have a concept, and then you're able to implement that concept, cause it to materialize. And he really did have those, what we call zолотые руки. He could do a lot of things. He could do anything. I already said that he got this encyclopedic knowledge, so he knew a lot of things about a lot of things. Why is that? Because Garik was intelligent, what we call in the Russian language. I intentionally decided not to translate this word into English. Because in English, the word intelligent just means somebody who's smart, who has a good brain, who knows. The word intelligent in the Russian language has a bit of a, it has a different meaning. It came into the Russian language actually from Italian, intelligentsia, it's an Italian word. And it means not only someone who knows a lot, but someone who really has a very broad scope of knowledge, broad education, and also follows a particular value system. That's who Garik was. He was a true intelligent. And he knew a lot of things about, like I said, about a lot of things. And that's why the life with Garik and spending time with Garik were always meaningful. I love the way you put it, Lida and Sasha. They said, with Garik было всегда не скучно, никогда не было ничего занудного. That's just how it was. Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. And again, that's the way to live, my friends. That's the way to live. None of us live like angels. We're not angels. We're human beings. But the important thing is that we we make sure that life is good. Make sure that life is fun. It's meaningful. Whether we're experiencing something positive or something negative. And Garrick set a wonderful example for all of us. And that is also why he was an intelligent. That's why they lived such a really full, complete spiritual life. They went to theater, they went to concerts, they traveled, they traveled many places. And I got to tell you, for us people from the Soviet Union, traveling was something that pretty much was unavailable there. We could travel inside the country, but traveling abroad and seeing foreign countries was impossible, or especially if you're Jewish, forget about it. So when the opportunity came, we arrived here in the U.S. and all of a sudden we can go anywhere we want. And Lida and Guy, they seized that opportunity and went to many places and enjoyed seeing many countries and many cities. Garrick enjoyed people, enjoyed being with people, enjoyed company. And again, I will quote Sasha, if he allows me to. He described Garrick as extroverted introvert, which is a very interesting way of describing him, because overall he was a quiet guy until he finds himself in a company, until he finds himself in the crowd. Then he just lights up and just has a good time. He genuinely loved people, and it always showed. And I know many of you cherished and will always remember many beautiful moments with Garrick. He had a gift, a literary gift. Books played a very important part of his life. We live in the country where 60% of the population never finish a book in their lives, which is a shameful statistics. So Garrick's way of life in that regard is also an example to all of us that we should follow. In his particular case, he read poetry, he loved poetry, he loved contemporary literature as well as the Russian classics, and he wrote poetry as well. He had that gift. I already mentioned that Garrick was one of those people who did enjoy food, and again, I did mention why, but he was pretty good. He could make good meal. Пироги с мясом. That was right. That was his thing, meat pies, meat pies, yes. And another thing that Garrick did is something that very few Americans ever do. It's the Russian thing, and I was told it's also the Italian thing. Went into the woods mushroom picking, собирать грибы. So he would go, of course in Leningrad, those of you who have been to Leningrad or come from there, that area is a great place to do that. Very rich with mushrooms and all that. And in the US, you can find areas, even though the species of the mushrooms here are very different from the ones we have over in Europe, but that's a different story. There's still many beautiful edible wild mushrooms we can pick. And in Wisconsin, I think there's a good area for that. So so Lida and Garrick went there and did it and had a good time. Now, why do you pick mushrooms? Well, of course you eat them. But the way that Russians do this is that we don't necessarily come and fry them or anything like that. No. We солим и маринуем. We marinate them. And so you pick the mushrooms, bring them home, then you marinate them, make like in a jar, in a big jar, and you set it. And then every time you have a festive table, you put them on and you eat them. Right. It's a beautiful thing, and that's what Garrick always enjoyed doing. That was his thing. So see, full life, whatever aspect of life you take, and the big and small things, full, beautiful life. Now, again, early experiences taught Garrick that the most valuable thing that we have in this world is family. No question about that. And he cherished his family. He loved his family very much. His sister Mara, may memory be a blessing. He was a loving brother. And Lida, еще раз, Лидочка, дай Бог вам душевных сил и доброго здравия. Держитесь. His beloved wife, they were together for 62 years. It's a lifetime. And again, 62 years, it's not a smooth ride. There are bumps on that road, but the important thing, they went through all those experiences, good ones and challenging ones, as one, as the family. He was a loving and devoted husband. God blessed Garik with the only son, Sasha, and it is a mission of every parent to raise a good kid. So when our children grow up and something good happens, they have a good career, they find success in life, we're proud, and quite rightly so. But our mission is only complete when the moment arrives, and I say to myself, my son grew up to be a good man. That's when I'm done. Garik was rightfully proud of his son, Sasha. He raised a good man. Sasha is married to Dina, who was also very dear to Garik's heart. They enjoyed a wonderful, heartfelt, warm relationship. And God bless him with wonderful granddaughters, Maya and Talia. Talia's older, right? Talia's 20, Maya's 18, yes. He was a very proud and very loving grandfather. In the 20th century, there was a great German Jewish philosopher and rabbi whose name was Leo Beck, who lived a long life. He also went through the concentration camp of all things. And then at the end of his life, he gave an interview in which he uttered a brilliant statement. He said, "Wir Juden wissen, es ist ein Gebot von Gott zu leben." We Jews know that it is God's commandment to live. Not to exist, not to survive, but to live. What he meant by that is that we should live in such a way that our life would matter. Garik is the man who has fulfilled that commandment. He has lived a beautiful life. So today, as we are parting with our dear Garik, we say, Lech b'shalom, go forth in peace. His time has come, and the Almighty One has summoned him. And the angels in heaven are greeting him with the words, Boi v'shalom, enter here in peace. God will receive his soul with love and compassion, and here on earth, Garik will always continue to live in our hearts, our minds, and most importantly, our good deeds. So may Garik's memory be a blessing upon all of us. Friends, I do have a text that Garik's best friend, Lonya, who cannot be present with us today because he's far away, he wanted to share this with you. First and foremost, of course, with Garik's family. So these are Lonya's words. They are written in Russian, so I will make these remarks in the Russian language. Дорогие Лидочка, Сашенька, Диночка и девочки, сегодня вы прощаетесь со своим близким и родным человеком, который вас всех очень любил. Он очень гордился вами, особенно Саша тобой, твоими успехами в бизнесе, музыке и рисовании. Он очень радовался быть с тобой рядом, проводить вместе время и твою готовность быть рядом в любую минуту. Но об этом вы можете сказать сами. Мы с Эммой выражаем вам глубокое соболезнование по поводу этого события. Но для меня лично это невосполнимая утрата близкого друга. Даже могу сказать старшего брата, с которым мы дружили более 65 лет. Мы познакомились с Гариком, когда нам было по 18 лет. У нас было много общего. Позже мы тесно были связаны с семьями и детьми. Я, например, привез Сашулю из родильного дома на своей машине. А Гарик привез спустя 6 лет мою доченьку Машеньку. Можно сказать, наши жизни были тесно переплетены. Гарик был очень талантливым человеком в самых разных областях. Науки, практики, искусстве и, конечно, поэзии. Он писал прекрасные стихотворения. Многие друзья Гарика имеют стихотворные поздравления по разному поводу. У него были золотые руки, и дома он мог сделать все сам. Гарик очень интересовался историей. В последние годы он много времени посвятил изучению своих семейных корней, дедушкам, бабушкам и других родственников по линии отца и матери. Это Бравy и Кац. Гарик этот свой огромный труд оставил тебе, Саша. Кстати, я был знаком со всеми родственниками Гарика по папиной и маминой линии. Гарик был очень добрый человек. Он всегда готов был помочь в трудную минуту и даже не в трудную. Я это знаю, наверное, лучше многих. Особенно я ощутил его поддержку, будучи в отказе на выезд. И Гарик и Лидочка приезжали ко мне из Америки в Ленинград побыть вместе, поддержать меня. Я это помню всегда. Больше нет сил говорить, да, Гарик ушел, но он всегда останется в моей памяти. Прощай, дорогой друг. Почтим память Гарика минутой молчания, прошу встать. Please rise for a minute of silence in memory of our dear Garik. אל מלא רחמים שוכם במרומים, אמצע מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים מותרים כזער הרקיע ומסירים, את נשמת גיא שהלך לעולמו, בעל הרחמים יסתרגו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצור בצור החיים מת נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. God full of mercy, who dwells in the heights, provide a sure rest upon the divine presence as wings, within the range of the holy, pure and glorious, who shine and resemble the skies, to the soul of our beloved Garik. The Master of mercy will protect him forever, and will bind his soul in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance, may rest in peace. Let us all say, Amen. And finally, my dear friends, we shall say Kaddish in Garik's memory. You all know that this is the most important memorial prayer, but Kaddish is not about death. Kaddish is a hymn of praise to God, and therefore it is a hymn of praise to life itself. Because remember, death is nothing, because life is everything. Let us honor Garik's life. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי יכונו ויום יכונו וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה וזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהיה שמי רבם מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי יתגודשה ברכו. נעלם עם כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. Amen. Please be seated, my dear friends. We shall now proceed with the interment. Before we do that, we will also place this earth into the place of eternal rest. Mr. Gooden, would you kindly assist me, please? We shall place this earth into the place of eternal rest of our dear Garik. This earth is taken from Har HaZeitim, from the Mount of Olives, which is located in Jerusalem. In the Jewish tradition, it is considered to be very important to be buried in the land of Israel. Why? In the rabbinical literature, in many sources, including, for example, Midrash Tanhuma, just one of them, there is this idea that when the end of times comes and when the Messiah arrives, the Mashiach, there will be a resurrection of the dead. And the rabbis suggested that people who are buried in the land of Israel will be the first ones to return back to life. So, hence the importance of being buried in the Israeli earth. So, this is Israeli earth, place it into the place of eternal rest of Garik. At this time, our friends will proceed with their part, and following that, when we'll be prepared, I will announce it. We will all participate in the burial, and that's the most important aspect of the funeral rites in Judaism. It's a great mitzvah to take part in the burial of the deceased, so we all have an opportunity to fulfill that mitzvah. Once again, there will be an appropriate announcement made. Friends, also while we have an opportunity, I would like to share with you that the family will be receiving calls of condolences at the Bravy residence, which is 250 Roger Williams Avenue, Highland Park. Family will be grateful if you attend and pay your respects and offer your support at this time. So they will be receiving those calls of condolences upon return from the cemetery today until 9 p.m., please, until 9 p.m.
In just a moment, everyone is going to be invited to come forward and place some measures of earth in the grave. You may do so from either side of the mound using shovels on either side. We will ask that the family be allowed to come forward first to do so. After you've participated, you may return to your cars. Our services here will be concluded. At this time, we'll ask the family to come forward.
fit this